So in October of 2026, there was this glitch during a local election in Estonia.
Right, the local council election.
Yeah, and it didn't just delay a few votes or something. It literally took down the entire nation's emergency call handling.
Which is just wild.
It is. It froze identity document services. And while the system was compromised, everyday citizens started getting these highly personalized, AI-generated scam calls.
Yeah, pretending to be their state health insurance fund.
Exactly. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at what happens when the very infrastructure of democracy collides with, your daily life.
Because it really does impact you directly.
Totally. You already know 2026 is this massive, unprecedented year for global elections. I mean, you've seen the headlines.
Everyone has.
Right. But our mission today isn't to just repeat the daily news. We're taking this really diverse stack of sources, so from Estonian cybersecurity reports and Euronews financial transcripts, all the way to Wikipedia's global trackers, and even local Greek coverage from Rodopi Press.
It's a huge mix of information.
It is, and we're connecting the dots for you. We're going to show you how a geopolitical conflict thousands of miles away directly freezes your mortgage rate.
Right.
How all these new political faces are altering European stability, and honestly, why the concept of a secret ballot might soon be completely obsolete. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Well, we have to start by examining the structural integrity of these elections themselves, because really the fundamental backdrop of 2026 is that the systems are under just intense scrutiny.
Yeah, the rules of the game are being questioned.
Exactly. And the research and reporting across all our sources, they constantly revolve around this term, democratic backsliding.
Right, which we hear thrown around constantly as this, political buzzword.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
But looking at the research, it's rarely a dramatic military coup. It's not the house burning down. It's more it's like a landlord quietly changing the locks on the doors while the tenants are asleep.
That is a really good way to put it.
It's just this slow, legalistic tilting of the electoral playing field, redrawing a map here, altering a media ownership law there, until the institutions they no longer function as fair checks and balances.
Right. And it's a gradual decline in the quality of democracy. This raises an important question. If a system is systematically tilted over a long period, can the electorate still, force a change in management?
I mean, is this backsliding usually a sudden shock, or is it this long, invisible process?
Oh, it's usually invisible, which is why Hungary gives us such a fascinating case study this year.
Oh, yeah. April 12th.
Right. Politico actually categorized their April 12th parliamentary election as arguably the EU's most important election of 2026.
Because of Viktor Orban, right?
Yes. For 16 years, you had incumbent Prime Minister Viktor Orban and his Fidesz party consolidating power. Multiple research organizations and even the European Parliament argued this was basically the textbook definition of democratic backsliding.
Right. They claim the legal and media landscapes were fundamentally restructured to just favor the ruling party.
It's exactly. But the outcome of that April election completely disrupts the assumption that backsliding is a one-way street.
Because Peter Magyar and the moderate Tisa party didn't just challenge Orban, they actually secured a two-thirds majority.
Which was huge.
Crazy. The locks might have been changed, but the voters still managed to break the door down anyway.
Yeah, it forces us to realize that institutional advantage doesn't guarantee, permanent immunity from voter frustration.
Right.
And it also highlights that anxiety about election integrity isn't always about authoritarianism. Sometimes it's just about administrative mechanics.
Like we're seeing in the U.S. right now.
Exactly. We see these exact same anxieties playing out in the lead-up to the United States midterms, but with a completely different set of mechanical arguments.
Right. The U.S. sources detail this hyper-polarized environment where literally every single administrative adjustment, how a vote is cast or counted, is viewed as an existential threat by one side or the other.
The push and pull is just relentless there.
It is. Look at the controversies over mid-decade redistricting. You have critics and civil rights groups alleging that these map adjustments are blatant attempts at election subversion designed to dilute voter power.
Right.
But then on the flip side of that same coin, you have the intense legislative battles over things like the SAVE Act.
Yeah, and the arguments around the SAVE Act, they perfectly illustrate this friction between security and access.
How so?
Well, proponents argue that mandating strict proof of citizenship is just a baseline necessity, to secure the vote and maintain confidence in the system. They view it as protecting democracy.
Okay, right.
But then opponents argue that the mechanism of the law places undue burdens on legitimate voters.
Yeah.
For instance, creating these massive administrative hurdles for married women whose current legal names no longer perfectly match their birth certificates.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So they view the law as dismantling democracy.
It's a completely paralyzing dynamic. Because when a population loses faith in the neutrality of the rule makers, the actual results of the election become secondary to the fight over how the election was run in the first place.
Exactly, which is why the massive wave of new faces winning power globally in 2026 is so striking.
Right. If the foundations of democracy feel unstable to voters, their response has been to just completely sweep out the architects.
And the turnover across Europe alone is, it's a structural realignment.
Tell me about it.
Well, in Portugal, Antonio José Seguro won the presidency, stepping in for Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, who was term limited.
Okay.
In Bulgaria, we saw a total reshuffle that broke legacy molds. Eliane Aitova became the first female president in the country's history.
Oh, that's a big deal.
Yeah, while former President Rumen Radev secured a landslide parliamentary majority with progressive Bulgaria.
Wow.
The Netherlands swore in Rob Jetten as their youngest and first openly gay prime minister. And in the UK, Andy Burnham took over as prime minister following Keir Starmer's resignation.
Okay, wait, I have to challenge the actual impact of this, though.
Go ahead.
Because, a new face at a podium is great for a headline. But does swapping out a prime minister actually change the bureaucratic machinery of a state? Or is it just like a fresh coat of paint on a system that is still going to operate on the exact same economic and diplomatic inertia?
It's tempting to view personnel changes as purely aesthetic. I get that. But synthesizing these specific leadership shifts reveals a real rejection of deep-seated national orthodoxies.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when voters in the Netherlands elevate a figure like Jetten, or when Bulgarian voters hand a landslide to a completely newly structured party under Radev, they aren't just changing the spokesperson.
Right.
They're changing who is in the room when budget allocations are decided. A new leader directs the bureaucracy to prioritize different crises.
Okay.
They appoint the ministers who decide whether to subsidize green energy or fossil fuels, whether to open borders or close them. Personnel eventually becomes policy.
Yeah, but the reality is a prime minister's policy often takes years to trickle down to the average citizen.
That's true.
If you are listening to this and wondering how 2026 actually alters your daily life, we have to look away from the national capitals.
Definitely.
The decisions that dictate your commute, your rent, and your local schools are driven by the local and regional shifts, which have been just as seismic this year. So what does this all mean for you, the everyday voter? How does a local shift change your daily commute or housing?
Well, the local level is where ideological mandates actually collide with physical reality. Look at the United Kingdom.
Okay.
In the Welsh Sen election, Plaid Cymru secured victory, and that ended a century of dominance by the Labour Party.
100 years.
100 years of a specific political machine running regional affairs just suddenly gone.
Yeah.
That fundamentally alters the economic development strategy for an entire region.
Right, and we saw similar localized ideological shifts in France, where municipal elections in March delivered substantial gains for right-wing and centrist parties.
Yeah, fundamentally changing the approach to urban policing and city budgets.
And in the U.S., New York City swore in Zohar Mamdani as its first Muslim and Asian American mayor, signaling a massive shift in urban progressive politics.
Huge shift.
But to really understand the friction between grand national ideology and local reality, the reporting from Rhodope Press in Greece is just the ultimate case study.
Oh, absolutely. The Greek context is vital because it illustrates this dual track of governance perfectly.
Break that down for us.
On one track, you have local infrastructure directly tied to the cost of living. The sources highlight the new national housing strategy running from 2026 to 2035.
Right.
And this is an abstract policy. This is a direct mandate to construct or renovate 19,750 affordable homes and 8,500 student beds.
That's massive.
Alongside that, you have the completion of the northern section of the E65 highway. These are tangible physical changes to how citizens sleep, trade, and move around.
Yet, while the government is out there pouring concrete for the E65, they are simultaneously locked in this fiery high-level debate over a constitutional revision for July 2026.
Yes, the timing is incredible.
You have Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis arguing that the Constitution must be modernized to allow the state to function in the 21st century.
Right.
But Nikos Androulakis of PASOK is countering that rewriting the rules means absolutely nothing if the government systematically degrades the basic respect for current institutions.
And the opposition deepens when you look at the underlying ideological divides.
Yeah, explain that part.
So Rina Daru from Syriza points to historical context, questioning the motives behind altering these foundational laws.
Okay.
While Dimitris Katsoumbas of the KKE explicitly opposes the revision on the grounds that it is fundamentally a vehicle for anti-labor and anti-student policies.
It feels like an incredible paradox, you know? Well, a student in Greece might literally be moving into one of those 8,500 newly built student beds, while their political representatives are arguing that the new constitution being drafted will strip them of their future labor rights.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
It proves that local delivery and national ideology are completely intertwined.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it shows that local infrastructure doesn't exist in a vacuum at all.
Right.
I mean, a local mayor can't build 19,000 homes if the national government's constitutional framework limits their funding.
Makes sense.
And taking it a step further, the national government can't fund those homes if global macroeconomic forces make borrowing money impossibly expensive. The ripple effects of global geopolitics in 2026 are hitting everyday citizens directly in their wallets.
Yeah, and the February 2026 outbreak of the Iran war is the perfect example of that.
It really is.
It triggered an immediate, massive global energy and inflation shock, and almost instantly, a geopolitical conflict in the Middle East became the central local political crisis in every voting booth in the West.
In the United States, that sudden spike in gas prices eclipsed almost every other issue for the November midterms.
Oh, yeah, gas prices are always the big one.
The administration found themselves under immense pressure because voters don't separate foreign policy from their personal budgets. They feel the cost of global instability every single time they pull up to a gas pump.
And the broadcast transcripts from Euronews show the exact transmission mechanism of how that war hit European citizens, too.
Right. The ECB response.
Because of the inflation caused by that energy shock, the European Central Bank, the ECB, made the aggressive decision to hold interest rates steady at 2.25%. They are terrified of a second inflation spike, so they just refuse to cut rates.
Which means the cost of borrowing remains high. And the 2.25% isn't just a macroeconomic statistic in a textbook.
No, it's real life.
It dictates the lending rate for retail banks. It means a family in France pays hundreds of euros more for their mortgage. It means a small business owner in Greece can't afford the loan to expand their shop. The war in Iran directly dictated the disposable income of millions of Europeans this year.
And when disposable income shrinks, social cohesion usually fractures.
Absolutely.
We see this immense economic pressure bleeding directly into the debate over European values and borders. The sources detail a highly controversial far-right petition that has unofficially gathered around 600,000 signatures.
That's a massive number.
It is. And it's backed by major national figures like Viktor Orban, Santiago Abascal in Spain, George Simeon in Romania, and Roberto Vannacci in Italy. They are demanding the deportation of non-EU citizens, claiming they represent an unsustainable cultural and economic burden.
And the reaction to this highlights a critical tension point for the future of the European Union.
Right.
Figures like Green MEP Christina Garda have forcefully condemned the petition, characterizing it as dangerous hate propaganda.
Yeah.
Maintaining strict neutrality on the policies themselves, we just have to recognize what this means for European stability. When inflation spikes and housing becomes scarce, the political rhetoric inevitably shifts toward defining who belongs and who doesn't.
It's the search for a scapegoat, right? Driven by economic anxiety.
Precisely.
But while citizens are arguing over physical borders and physical housing, the most profound vulnerability of 2026 is entirely invisible.
You're talking about Estonia.
Let's go back to that cybersecurity report from Estonia's Information System Authority, the RIA, because it is genuinely terrifying.
It is. Estonia is arguably the most digitally integrated society on the planet. I mean, they pioneered online voting.
Yeah.
But during their local government council elections in October, their infrastructure was targeted. They faced coordinated, distributed denial of service or DDoS attacks aimed at election-related websites.
No, the voting systems themselves supposedly held up.
Right. The votes were safe.
But the attack triggered a malfunction in the population register services. And this is where the theory of cyber warfare hits everyday reality.
Yeah.
Because the population register is tied to everything, the glitch disrupted emergency 911 call handling.
Unbelievable.
It took down identity document services. So wait, if a simple election season glitch can literally take down emergency services, aren't our civic duties becoming a massive cyber vulnerability?
Well, yeah, and it gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
Because malicious actors actually utilize that window of administrative chaos to deploy targeted AI-generated scam calls.
Oh, this part is wired.
Citizens were receiving calls featuring cloned voices, pretending to be representatives from the state electricity company Electrolevy, offering to replace meters.
Jeez.
Others received calls claiming to be the health insurance fund processing healthcare reimbursements.
That is incredibly sinister. Think about the psychology of that. It's election season. The news is screaming about hacks and delays. You are anxious. And suddenly you get a call from what sounds exactly like your local health insurance agent telling you there's a problem with your coverage.
Yep.
The scammers are literally weaponizing civic duty and administrative panic to drain bank accounts.
It's highly effective.
We encourage everyone to engage digitally to increase voter turnout. But an attack on an election took down the ambulances. The cost of democracy is suddenly physical safety.
It reveals the danger of a hyper-integrated state. When the digital infrastructure required to cast a ballot is shared with the digital infrastructure required to dispatch an ambulance or verify a health insurance claim, an attack on the election is an attack on daily survival.
Wow.
Hostile actors understand that during a high-stakes election, a population is distracted. They are expecting unusual administrative communications. They are the perfect targets for phishing and AI voice cloning.
We started this deep dive looking at the theoretical mechanics of democratic backsliding, how the locks get changed on the institutions.
Right.
But seeing the full spectrum of 2026, from the electoral upsets in Hungary and the massive wave of new European leaders, down to the tangible realities of how a war in Iran freezes a mortgage rate in France, or how a local housing strategy in Greece is tied to constitutional reform, the picture becomes really clear.
It's all connected.
It is. Being well-informed isn't about memorizing the names of new prime ministers. It's about seeing the invisible threads of causality.
And
The macroeconomics dictate the local politics, and the local politics dictate your physical reality.
That causal chain is absolutely the most important takeaway from these sources. And as we consider how these systems will hold up in the future, there is one final detail buried in the Estonian cybersecurity report that just demands attention. Currently, Estonia is developing a national roadmap for post-quantum cryptography.
Okay, sounds very sci-fi.
It does. But they are racing to do this because the rapid advancement of quantum computing threatens to easily solve the mathematical algorithms that currently encrypt and protect literally all of our global data.
Wait, which means every bank transaction, every medical record, and every online vote could theoretically be exposed.
Precisely. So I want you to ponder this as we look toward the next massive election cycle. If our current standard of digital encryption is on the verge of becoming completely obsolete, how will we mathematically secure the very concept of a secret democratic ballot in the future?
That is a staggering thought to end on, because if quantum computing breaks the encryption of the ballot box, it won't matter who the new prime minister is or what the Constitution says.
Exactly.
The foundation of the vote itself will be entirely transparent. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, question the mechanics of the news you consume, and keep a close eye on the invisible threads connecting it all.